Let me take a sip of my coffee for 8 to 15 seconds before we get started on this one. U.S. plans to end public health emergency for COVID in May. Yo. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I love the world. I mean, I love the world. I really do. I think the world is awesome. I love living in this world. Honestly. So, now, there's multiple questions. I can react to the headline here real quick for y'all. We'll read some details in a moment. But there's multiple things that I want to say here. America did nothing to stop COVID. We got it. We didn't do any lockdowns. We barely did quarantines in like 3 states out of the 50. There's 50 states, by the way. I don't know if anyone remembered that. California having restrictions for like 2 months has nothing to do with the rest of the country. But okay, Republicans love California when it comes to COVID restrictions. So we didn't have a lockdown. We only had like a quarantine, quasi quarantine in like 2 or 3 states. Right? And that's it. We did nothing. 83% of Americans have refused to take a vaccine. 83% of Americans are anti-vaxxers. You might be wondering, what? That's right. There was a new bivalent booster shot, and only 17% of Americans got it. The most effective and necessary vaccine, and only 17% of people got it. We never had any vaccine mandate in this country, contrary to popular conspiracy theories online. There were never any lockdowns. And the government essentially just let 1 million+ people die for no reason. Joe Biden declared victory from the coronavirus pandemic in March of 2022, then said the pandemic was over in October of 2022. He did nothing. Biden campaigned on ending COVID. He did nothing. He did nothing. About 2,000 people die every week in this country from COVID-19. 2,000 people die. Biden has done nothing. He's done nothing. And Americans are so stupid and dumb that they actually think, like, there's like a popular conspiracy, and I was interacting with some of this morning on social media. There's a popular conspiracy that the United States had lockdowns. Now, again, Republicans don't know what the word lockdown means. Lockdown means you are locked inside of your house. That never happened in any 50 states. That happened in 0 out of 50 states. Now, 3 or 4 out of 50 states had some restrictions, right? Like you couldn't get a haircut, for example, so on and so forth, right? But that's not a lockdown. Just to be very clear, that's not a lockdown. Kids stayed home from school for 6 months. Guess what? We have words for that, and lockdown is not among them, okay? But there's a conspiracy theory that the United States had lockdowns and mandates. There were never any mandates. The only mandates that happened was Joe Biden released a quote-unquote vaccine mandate where there were 2 options. You either get vaccinated or don't. Those were the options in the so-called vaccine mandate. Does anyone remember that? Does anyone remember the vaccine mandate that had 2 options? Get vaccinated, don't get vaccinated, and you can choose not to get vaccinated? And yet people call that a mandate. So, hey, all right. But again, we did nothing in this country. Thousands of people die all the fucking time. Every week. Thousands of people die. There were never any lockdowns. The only thing we did was, again, quasi-quarantine. No one was arrested for leaving the house. You know, no one was being beaten in public for leaving the house. You could do anything you wanted, except for some businesses were shut down. Now, again, we also had the PPP program. What did that do? It was supposed to fund these small businesses. You know what happened, though? Right-wingers, billionaires, and Republicans stole all the money. So a lot of people go like, lockdowns ruined small businesses. No, actually, Republicans did by stealing all the money and not letting small businesses actually get it. That had nothing to do with a so-called imagined lockdown, okay? And that's it. We did nothing. We did nothing. We didn't give anyone masks. We didn't even talk about masks. There's a new vaccine. Only 17% of people have gotten it. We did nothing as a country. That's a fact. We did nothing. So I asked this question. What does ending the U.S. emergency, public health emergency for COVID mean? Well, it's part of their strategy to give publicly funded vaccines. Do you remember Operation Warp Speed? Does anyone remember that? Publicly funded vaccines. The vaccines that are effective and safe, that only 17% of Americans have bothered getting, that were publicly funded by the government, we paid for it. We paid for it. Joe Biden is now giving that for free to private companies for free. Now imagine if you build a house and then I go into your house and say, wow, this is a nice house. It's mine now. And then I rent it out. And now people are living in the house that you built, and I'm getting the rent payments for it. And you get nothing. That's America on the COVID vaccine. We got ripped off. We were stolen from. And Joe Biden is doing nothing. He's doing nothing. He has lied about COVID every step of the way. That's a fact. If that fact makes you uncomfortable, maybe you should, I don't know, rethink your position on Joe Biden. Joe Biden's a terrible fucking president. He's worse than Donald Trump when it comes to COVID. That's a fact. What did Donald Trump do? He got about 20 to 25% of the country to hate vaccines. What did Joe Biden do? He got the other 75% of the country to do the same. Again, under Joe Biden, we went from 80% vaccination rate to 17% vaccination rate under Joe Biden. That's Joe Biden's tenure in office. Going from 80% to 17% in vaccination rates with a more effective, a better, more effective vaccine. 80% got a less effective vaccine. 17% got the more effective vaccine. So thanks a lot, Joe Biden. The Biden administration plans to let the coronavirus public health emergency expire in May, the White House said on Monday, a sign that federal officials believe the pandemic has moved into a new, less dire phase. Less dire? What does that mean? I don't know. The move carries both symbolic weight and real-world consequences. Millions of Americans have received free COVID tests, treatments, and vaccines during the pandemic. And not all of that will continue to be free once the emergency is over. The White House wants to keep the emergency in place for several more months so hospitals, healthcare providers, and health officials can prepare for a host of changes when it ends. Hospitals, by the way, that are understaffed, overbooked, overrun, and so on and so forth. So now they're going to get less funding, less staff, and they're going to work at a lower capacity. So that's great. An average of more than 500 people in the United States are still dying from COVID-19 every day. About twice the number of deaths per day during a bad flu season. Think about that. 500 every day. Pandemic's over. But at the 3-year mark, the coronavirus is no longer upending everyday life to the extent it once did. partly because much of the population has at least some protection against the virus from vaccinations and prior infections. Now, again, this is not a thing. You are not better off against COVID if you get a prior infection. That is completely, wholeheartedly false. That is a lie. That is medical disinformation. Right? What happens when you get infected is your body will create antibodies, right? Your immune system will learn how to fight the virus. When you get reinfected, right, you might not necessarily become bedridden, but you are re-upping the live virus that is inside of your body. We know that people that get COVID, even when they are no longer experiencing symptoms, COVID is still alive in other parts of their body, their brain, their liver, their circulatory system, their muscles. COVID can survive outside the respiratory system, right? So now, again, you might get sick 3 weeks after getting sick and not be as sick symptomatically, right? You might not sneeze as much or cough as much or have breathing issues as much. But that doesn't, it doesn't nullify the fact that you got reinfected. Like, that's not a thing. That's not a thing. It's fake news. I mean, I'm serious. It's fake fucking news. Not to mention the vaccine, or rather the variant of the virus can change. You get infected from one variant, 6 months later, a completely different one infects you. You don't really have any immunity at all. That's not a thing. It's just not. It's fake. It's fake news. Like, I don't know what to tell you. All the public health officials that have been saying that, CDC, whatever, Biden, WHO, they've lied to you. They've lied. It's a lie. I don't know what to tell you. And also, at least some protection against the virus from vaccinations. That's also a lie. This is 2 for 2 on the lies, okay? This is 2 for 2. Now, I'm going to go more into this in a moment. Getting a vaccine 2 years ago confers little to no protection against the newer variants of COVID that are circulating in this country. If that triggers you, if that offends you, I don't know. Maybe you should get an updated vaccination. Again, only 17% of Americans have gotten the vaccine for the currently circulating variants. 17%. That's not much of the population, okay? That's nothing. That's nothing. That's margin of error. That's negligible. Only 17% of people wear seatbelts. That's an emergency. Only 17% of people, you know, I don't even know what else you can, like, that's what? Okay, so, and again, getting vaccinated in April of 2021 is not, and I'm sorry, but facts, again, they can be uncomfortable, is not offering you almost, I mean, again, is it better than never being vaccinated? Sure. But that's not saying much. That's not saying much. Saying this is at least 0.00001% better than not doing it, that's not really, again, the whole point of how these COVID vaccinations work is that they require re-upping in the same way that a flu vaccination requires re-upping because the variants change over time. So again, these two things, these are both lies. This is medical disinformation, but no one cares anymore. The New York Times can just print this garbage. No one fucking cares. That's a lie. I don't know what to tell you. The coronavirus is no longer upending everyday life to the extent it once did. What does that mean? Now let's, again, media criticism and media literacy are major aspects of my show. So when you read this, right, let's start at the beginning of the sentence, just to be clear. But at the 3-year mark, the coronavirus is no longer upending everyday life to the extent it once did. What does that mean? Did the coronavirus upend everyday life during March, April, and May of 2020? No. No, not at all. You know what did, though? The government doing, again, not lockdowns, But some states, I spent that time period in North Carolina. North Carolina did nothing. They did nothing. There were 0 restrictions in North Carolina. But some states, again, California and New York are some of the major ones, but some other ones, Michigan, Colorado, some other states. Washington had some more quasi-quarantine restrictions. Coronavirus didn't do that. If we were judging this based on the science, we would have those same restrictions now, because Corona is killing more people now. Now. It is killing more people now. So, scientifically speaking, we would be doing that now. Right? Right? I mean, am I the crazy one? Am I the crazy one? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm the crazy one. But Americans have decided that they don't give a fuck. Now, I am a rare example of someone that has not gotten COVID, and I am still in a self-imposed lockdown. But under no point in time, at any point at all, were there any actual government lockdowns? It's just not true. It's not a real thing. Now again, some states, emphasis on some, 5, handful, right? Barely any, had some restrictions. That is not a lockdown. That is not a lockdown. A lockdown is a word, it's a compound word that has a definition. To be locked down. Where does the term lockdown come from? We often think about it in the context of prisons. If you're in prison, does a lockdown mean you can leave your cell and go to the grocery store? Is that a lockdown? If you're in prison, does a lockdown mean you can order a pizza and get it delivered? If you're in prison, does a lockdown mean you can go on a walk in the park? So why are we using the term lockdown? Why? Because Republicans are crybaby fucking lunatics. There was never a lockdown in this country. Some states had some quarantine and restriction bullshit. Okay, some states. Majority of states did not. I lived in North Carolina in 2020 and 2021. There were 0 restrictions the whole time. So, again, this is all a lie. All of this is a lie. Now, this is the thing about the New York Times, is this part is true. 500 people a day dying. I don't know what to tell you, man. 500 people a day dying, to me, not acceptable. And I could be the rare example of someone who actually has empathy. But you know what? Living in this country, honestly, is destroying my empathy. Why should I have empathy for these fucking creatures, these pigs and ghouls that live in America? And I'm not talking about politicians. I'm talking about the voters and the people. The people that live in this country are garbage. They're garbage. I'm sorry if that triggers you, but it's a fact. Americans are suffering from the cuck mindset, where they let the government, police, institutions, and systems walk all over them and fuck them silly and do nothing about it. And in fact, they even like it. That is America. That is it. According to the vaccination statistics, 83% minimum. Minimum. That is the minimum. I'm willing to say it's higher. 83% minimum of Americans are fucking crazy, psychopathic, beta freaks, okay? I don't know what to tell you. I fucking hate them. I hate them. I hate them. Part of me is excited about the COVID public health emergency ending. I'm excited. Let it rip. I say, I am a relatively healthy 26-year-old, right? I will probably be okay not having to go to the doctor or not having to deal with the hospital in the next 5, maybe hopefully 10 years. That's my goal. I try to take care of myself. I try to eat well. I try to exercise when I can, though that I'm not doing so well at that lately. But I can rough it. So the way I see it, I'm in my fallout shelter. I'm in the vault, whatever it is. Let them all die. The sooner the better. The sooner the better. 500 a day of dying? That's rookie numbers. Let's pump them up, son. 1,000 a day? Can we get back to that? Can we get to 2,000 a day? Come on, kill them all, I say. Hey, they're fine with it. They're lambs walking into slaughter. I say, let them die. That's my opinion. 83% of Americans, let them fucking die. Because then, hopefully, after they all fucking die, maybe my life could be a little bit better. Now, does that sound... I know. Does that sound a little radical to you? Well, hey, I think during a public health emergency, pretending that there's nothing going on, I think that's a little radical. So that's my opinion. That's my opinion. Still, the White House said on Monday that the nation needed an orderly transition out of the public health emergency. The administration said it also intended to allow a separate declaration of a national emergency to expire on the same day, May 11th. Quote, an abrupt end to the emergency declarations would create wide-ranging chaos and uncertainty throughout the healthcare systems for states, for hospitals, and doctors' offices, and most importantly, the tens of millions of Americans, the White House said. Again, I am sick of walking on eggshells in this country. I'm done. I'm sick of being careful with my words. I'm sick of trying to avoid triggering the American adult toddler. Okay? A lot of public health people are afraid to tell the truth. A lot of people in healthcare are afraid to tell the truth. They don't want to tell their patients. They don't want to tell their constituents. They don't want to tell whatever about the real facts of the matter going on. Why? Because they're afraid of an outburst. And hey, you know what? I don't blame them. I don't blame them. If I were a doctor, I wouldn't want to deal with the freaks either. But that's why I'm not a doctor. We live in a society where public health speakers, right? And scientists and people that are in charge and in the public eye, they're afraid to say the facts. They're afraid. They're afraid. And so what that results in is a shitty mixed messaging campaign on the reality of what's going on with COVID. That's why you see most Americans, they don't know or care about it, because the scientists and the people in charge of public health are too pussy chicken shit to say anything. So that's why you got to read these studies. That's why you got to read medical journals. You can't get this shit in mainstream press. That's why I cover it on my show. I do many segments on things like long COVID, COVID rates, how vaccinations work, new variants, right? Why? Because no one else does it? Do you see Anthony Fauci talk about that? No. Joe Biden? No. Do you see any doctors? Any doctors? What's that doctor on CNN that's on there all the time? Do you see him talking about it? No. Why would they? They're scared little chicken shit beta male fucking fuckface losers. And they failed at their job. They failed. It's like, if I'm the McDonald's fry cook and I accidentally see that there's a cockroach in your hamburger, and then I just decide I don't feel like telling you. You eat that cockroach. Let's say you get a disease of some kind. I didn't feel like triggering the customer, so fuck them. Let them die. Now again, I'm split here. I got two parts of me. Part one is wishing and hoping that America gets its shit together. Right? That's the faith part of me. That's the religious part of me. Now, I again, as an atheist, as an anti-theist, I'll admit, That part of my brain is not based in reality. It is based in faith. I want to have faith in America. But then there's the other part of me that recognizes that there is no faith and America is hopeless, and I actively want them all to suffer. I do. And I'm sorry if that makes me a fucking crazy person. But you know what? To me, being okay with mass death, that's the crazy shit. That's the crazy shit. I don't know, man. That's crazy to me. I don't know. Whatever. What is crazy even? Crazy is just whatever normal isn't, right? Normal, a couple years ago, was getting vaccinated. Now, 83% of the country says fuck vaccines. My opinion hasn't changed. It's just the sheep have gone with the wind in a different direction. My position is the same. My principles are the same. I was normal back then. Now I'm crazy. My opinion is unchanged. I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, you can read more of this shit. It's just Republicans being fucking ridiculous and all that. But I'm just... I don't know. There's nothing else. There's nothing else I need to say. But again, the two sides, the two genders, if you will, fuck them all, let them die. And two, for the love of God, get your shit together. We'll see which one happens. Obviously, I have no power here. I'm just a spectator. And so are all of us. So if anyone wants to place bets on what's going to happen, what's more likely to happen, America gets its shit together, or they all die and suffer, I'm willing to take bets. But I don't know if anyone would take me up on that. Anyway, there you go.